Ancient history is filled with men whose achievements and legacy have so transcended time that they are known by a single name: Socrates, Alexander, Hannibal. No clarification is needed when speaking about these giants of history, because who else could it be but the Socrates, the Alexander, or the Hannibal? This practice of reducing figures to a mononym is even more pronounced in the study of Roman history, as lengthy names like Nero, Claudius, Caesar, Augustus, Germanicus become simply Nero, and his tutor, Lucius Annaeus Seneca, is known only by the name Seneca. Though it can sometimes result in confusion, particularly because firstborn sons frequently bore the exact same name as their fathers, the practice is often necessary, as Roman names were quite long and unwieldy. Imagine trying to learn the names of the consuls during the reign of Marcus Aurelius, if we had to use full names like this. Yes, that was actually a guy's real name. I hope he just went by Quint. Names were incredibly important in the Roman world and communicated much critical information about a man's status, family, and clan to broader society, so the significance that the Romans placed on a man's name brings into focus just how curt and dismissive their society was towards women. At her birth, a girl received a single name, simply the feminine version of the clan name, one shared by every woman in the wider family. So Julius Caesar's two sisters were both named Julia, just as his daughter was, and Augustus's daughter as well. Generation after generation of women from one of the most powerful families in Rome were all just Julias. Because women were barred from political participation, there was no real need for outsiders or voters to differentiate between them. All their names needed to signify was their clan and which paterfamilias they effectively belonged to, so that each could be treated with the respect due to the valuable property of that particular family. Therefore, the women we know from the early Roman world bear a single name, whether they are known for their virtue, like Cornelia, or their sins, like Clodia. For the most part, all women in Republican Rome ever managed to get is a single name. Of course, very few women made it into the history books at all. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why historians, and Roman society at large, felt there was a lack of specificity needed when referring to women. Further complicating matters for those interested in studying how women shaped history in Rome is the fact that even when women do enter the historical record, it is almost always as one of two archetypical constructions: the devious, plotting harlot, or the refined, chaste matron. The problems begin with some of the first women who enter the pages of Roman history, the Sabine women who were abducted by Romulus and the early Romans. The harrowing tale of kidnapping and forced marriages is passed off without much judgment in the sources, with Livy even going so far as to say that no sexual assaults occurred, and that Romulus later promised each woman honorable matches and civic rights. For Cicero and Ovid, the qualifier that the men of Rome simply needed wives seems sufficient to quell any moral distaste at the mass kidnapping and rape of women and girls from neighboring communities. The humanity of these women is denied further in the tale. When their fathers and brothers organize an armed force to reclaim them, the kidnapped women announce that they are now content as Roman wives, and intervene to broker a lasting peace treaty. Other than when they act to justify their own kidnappings, nowhere are any of the women given a real sense of agency. In fact, other than Hersilia, referenced in some sources as the wife of Romulus, and the woman credited with initiating the treaty, none are even named. If you're enjoying this video, please do us a favor by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We're a small channel, and this is the only way to get the almighty YouTube algorithm to notice us. Furthermore, you can help Tribunate become more sustainable by becoming a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Thank you for all of your support. A name is, however, afforded to the Vestal Virgin Tarpeia, who betrays Rome by allowing Sabine forces into the city in exchange for a bribe of jewelry. Any notion that she may be acting in solidarity with the Sabine women here is absent. In these traditions, she doesn't seek to liberate fellow women who have been kidnapped, but is instead portrayed as vainly seeking after material goods. But the Sabines decide to kill her anyway, flinging their shields at her until she dies. The only woman who acts independently is brutally killed, while those who voice support for their own kidnappings and assaults are rewarded with lives of marital bliss. It's a chilling tale, only slightly redeemed by the fact that it most likely isn't true, at least not entirely. While the abduction of women does accurately reflect how Iron Age tribal warfare treated women as commodities and spoils of war, the flat characters on display betray how the story has been adjusted over time to reinforce traditional gender roles and reflect Roman morals instead of historical realities. While the existing narrative may depict the Sabine women accepting their fate, if such an event indeed occurred, then the historical reality likely differed, with some women sure to have engaged in acts of defiance and resistance against their oppressors. Unfortunately, those women's experiences are eclipsed by the glorification of male conquest, relegating them to the margins of their own narrative and erasing their authentic voices from the historical record. Women do become slightly more complex later in the Roman historical narrative, which is a small improvement. But even when women like Lucretia intersect with the pivotal events of Roman history, such as the downfall of the Tarquin dynasty and the founding of the Roman Republic, they remain largely plot devices or artificial constructions. The tale of Lucretia and the dawn of the Republic is discussed at length in a previous episode, which is appearing on your screen now. For the first several hundred years of Roman history, legendary tales like this are really all we have, caricatures of women that probably bear only the most passing resemblance to the actual historical persons they were based on. History in general, and politics in particular, were perceived as the exclusive domain of men, so any women who took an active role in reforming society were, by their very nature, intruding where they did not belong, and thus defining themselves as something other than the ideal of Roman womanhood. It was a no-win situation. Attempting to seriously organize for greater rights was akin to rejecting the entire system, making these women into outsiders within their own community, and by extension, the type of person who wasn't worthy of rights at all. This double bind created a toxic catch-22 that surely prevented many capable women from attempting to influence politics directly, and persuaded even more to avoid upsetting the status quo out of fear of losing what few privileges they did possess. However, in 296 BCE, a woman named Verginia managed to thread the needle between proper matronly posturing and the consistent application of political pressure to actively improve rights for Roman women. This accomplishment alone makes her one of the most fascinating figures in Roman history, a woman who has entered the record in her own right as an authentic, nuanced person. Though born to a patrician clan herself, Verginia married into a plebeian family and worked to reduce the legal distinctions between patricians and plebeians. She surely knew that only by cultivating solidarity between Roman women could they hope to effectively mobilize for greater rights. She was an active reformer in the religious sphere, probably the only area where she could openly instigate change. With this in mind, she was able to inaugurate a temple to plebeian chastity that testified to the strong moral character of plebeian women, elevating them in the eyes of the state and society at large. This certainly indicates a degree of boldness. However, being the clever political operator she was, Verginia's other achievements happened behind the scenes. Her husband, Lucius Volumnius Flamma Violens, achieved the consulship twice and used his position to pass legislation that helped women, such as a bill making divorce fairer. Though her true level of involvement in the legal reforms is hidden, both by her desire to keep a low profile and the heavy male bias of our sources, Verginia is remarkable as the first fully realized woman to step onto the pages of Roman history as an individual, complex human, instead of a simple caricature. Her success paved the way for other women to begin influencing culture and politics in the Roman Republic, meaning that women such as Cornelia, Hortensia, and Fulvia owe her a significant debt. The open involvement in politics of these women would in turn pave the way for women of the imperial house to exercise unprecedented political influence during the Principate, when figures like Livia and Agrippina played at times a more active role in shaping politics than the combined weight of the Senate. Though our sources for her life are far from comprehensive, and even farther from being objective, there is little doubt that Verginia was a remarkable woman whose intelligence, poise, and sheer willpower helped her transcend the constraints placed on women in ancient Rome, which surely relegated countless other exceptional women to historical obscurity. The story of Verginia should also remind us that, though there are many remarkable figures to be found in Roman history, the society was effectively operating with one hand tied behind its back by elevating men alone to positions of influence and opportunity. That certainly wasn't unique in the ancient world, but the fact that this sin was shared by all doesn't make it any more justifiable. Nor can the oppression of Roman women be defended through ignorance. Many men may have legitimately believed that women were incapable of leadership, and, sadly, many women would have internalized that belief and capitulated to it. But many more women, in moments of searing clarity, would have known that they were just as intelligent and capable as any man. We can't point to the uniform support of those who benefited from discrimination to make it appear that such discrimination was just the natural order of things. Those victimized by prejudice also deserve their say, a fact which is all too often neglected by those who study classical history. Anyone who has marveled at the intelligence of a man like Cicero must remember the words of American biologist Stephen Jay Gould. I am somehow less interested in the weight and convolutions of Einstein's brain than in the near certainty that people of equal talent have lived and died in cotton fields and sweatshops. As talented as Cicero was, there is no doubt that there were countless other Romans, men and women alike, who could have rivaled his eloquence and literary output had they been afforded the opportunity. The reality is that we will never know the names of the vast majority of geniuses that lived in ancient Rome, for they lived and died in misery, slavery, and subjugation. One wonders what Rome could have been, or even if it could still be here today, had it just listened to all its men and all its women.